We want to thank our sponsor, Binderlift. Binderlift is a patient lift device that buckles handles around the patient's torso so firefighters can safely lift patients of any size with ease. The most injury-prone, non-fireground activity a firefighter does is lift a patient. If you're lifting heavy patients, and let's be honest, all of us are, then you're going to want to check out the Binderlift so you can avoid getting injured from lifting a patient. Vince, have you ever lifted up a heavy patient? Or any patient at all?
I've blown my back out so many times lifting heavy patients. I can't count the number of times. So something like Binderlift is a pretty awesome product, especially if it's going to save me from having to lay up from the job or go to medical or just work the rest of my day in pain.
Absolutely, and they'll let anyone try it out for free. Doesn't matter what your role is within the department. Just sign up for a free field trial on their website, and they'll send you a set of Binderlifts to try out for a month or so, absolutely free. We use them in our department, and I recommend you give them a try. Just Google Binderlift to watch some videos and sign up for a free trial.
Binderlift, the new slogan should be Binderlift, save your back. Save your back.
Engine 1, Engine 4, Truck 2, Truck 10, Ambulance 82, Battalion 2, Fire 1020 North Main, help is on the way.
Welcome back to Chicago's Bravest Stories. Today, we're honored to have President of the Association of Firefighters of Illinois, Mr. Chuck Sullivan. Chuck, how are you?
I'm doing well, Corey. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and we've got Steve on the call-in line. Steven, how are you?
Steve and his
How
kids.
are you guys doing? And apparently my kids. No, we're doing good. It's 2020, so this year is absolutely crazy, and unfortunately I can't join you guys in the studio, but I'll be here on the phone, and we'll have a good interview.
Yeah, hopefully we can. Bill can edit out any of like the strange heavy breathing that Steve might have in the background, or even me.
We're glad you're here, Steve.
So,
Thanks, Chuck. We're glad you came.
So, Chuck, looking through this resume, incredibly impressive resume. I guess for now, if that's okay, I'd like to kind of focus on the AFFI.
Sure.
Care to kind of go through how you got your start and what you're doing these days?
Absolutely. Let's see. We can go back all the way to 1987.
Oh my God, let's go.
That's when I graduated high school.
Oh,
Okay.
a young, impressionable fella.
Right. Originally from the central Illinois parts, Bloomington, Champaign area. I graduated from high school in Bloomington. And at the time, let's just say that I lacked direction. So I joined the military and went in the Air Force for 4 years, from 87 to 91. Spent some time in Honduras and was in Desert Storm for about 9 months. And then got out of the military. At the time, I was stationed in Tucson, Arizona. And always knew I wanted to be a firefighter and tested in Tucson. But being from Illinois, I was literally like flying and driving back and forth. And I tested in Waukegan, tested in Alton, Springfield, really in all parts in between, Pekin, Quincy, Champaign. And was fortunate enough in 1995 to get hired by Champaign. And at the time, I was married. I had a 3-year-old, and my wife was pregnant. And when Champaign called, they actually called in late 94 and said that I was hired, it was the most money I'd ever made in my entire life. It was about $25,000.
Wow.
They also told me that they were going to pay 100% of my health insurance and 50% of my dependents. If I died in the line of duty, there was these benefits. They also mentioned something about a pension, which I could barely spell the word pension at the time. And in that moment, I was just thinking, well, the city of Champaign is a fantastic employer.
Yeah.
Right? Probably the best employer in the state of Illinois. I'm really lucky.
Wow.
And I don't want to misconstrue
No,
the city
by
of
no means
Champaign.
high road in anybody.
But Champaign, I mean, they are a good employer. But I've been on about a year and a half, and all of us in the fire service know this guy. He was on about 18 years. I'd been on about a year and a half. He was an engineer on my engine. Just that guy that they call him the barn boss.
Yep.
Everybody respects him. He was our union vice president at the time and encouraged me to start attending union meetings. So I actually did. And after about 4 or 5 union meetings, it finally clicked in my head. You know what? The city of Champaign is a good employer, but had it not been for my union and the ability to collectively bargain a contract, I would not be earning $25,000 a year, and I wouldn't have had the health insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So that's when it really clicked for me that the union was important. And looking back now, the city of Champaign, or any city for that matter, an employer, would probably prefer to pay me $8 an hour, maybe provide major medical insurance, and maybe a 401k. So that's how I really started down the union path, and realized how important a union is individually and collectively.
For us,
So,
you personally at Champaign and universally around the
Sure.
state. Yeah, it's absolutely. When we were talking to a couple other guys, we've kind of touched on that too. I mean, not to, like you said, Chuck, not to high road anybody. I mean, there's a lot of amazing, incredible part-time fire departments, volunteer fire departments.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
when we look at what we deal with in this area and what kind of issues that guys before us had with maybe being taken advantage of, like, it's incredible what, especially for relatively younger guy like me, looking back on what some of the old timers had to deal with, and,
Sure.
and like, oh my God, guys like us just can't help but take it for granted.
Yeah, it would be interesting. And at the time, I was in Bloomington Normal, and normal firefighters, local 2442, and they're numbered that for a specific reason, because they were 24 hours a day for 42 straight days. They were in jail because they went on strike. And I don't know today in 2020 if a unit or union in Champaign or Quincy or wherever, every single one of those normal firefighters, they worked a shift at the fire department because they were required by law to do so. But when they got off shift at 7 a.m., they all went to jail, and the other guys left jail and went into the fire station. So
Now, as far as unionism goes, that's some pretty hardcore street credit right there.
Absolutely.
Like, I had to go work my shift at the firehouse, and then I had to go back to the clink.
For 42 days. Correct. Yeah. And I don't know. I hope there is. North Riverside showed the way. I mean, they were ground zero, in this century. But the fact
as far as issues with privatization,
correct,
okay.
Right, and sticking together and doing what a union should do. I would hope that there are a number of locals in Illinois that actually would go to jail.
Right.
And in light of what Normal did, and Normal was one. I mean, there was a handful. Aurora went on strike. Joliet went on strike. About 10. The timing might be wrong. 10 years ago, Jim Schrepfer, who's an emeritus vice president at the AFFI, and Mike Matika, who's a laborer in Bloomington Normal, they wrote a book called The Fiery Struggle, which, Steve, I'm sure you've probably seen. And it just
Absolutely.
it documents from about the early 70s up till about the late 90s of all the struggles that different fire unions in the state went through. So it's a great read. If you want to contact the AFFI office, we can get you one for sure.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say, guys, to check that out. I think firemen in general get a bad rap for not reading. So
yeah, you just kind of forget. I mean, trust me, I'm just as guilty as anyone else. But if you just look back 30 years ago, firefighters then were working a second job or taking, any overtime they could get to make sure that the light bill was paid. Now today, guys work a second job, no offense, and maybe to, go to a vacation in Cancun.
Right, or supplemented income in whatever way.
And if you look at the back parking lot of any fire station today, most vehicles are 2016 or newer.
Right.
And those are good things.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think as members, we need to recognize sometimes, that we do have it good, but there was a long struggle, and we still struggle today. There's other issues still out there today that we face, because there's many organizations that today want to strip collective bargaining or remove our worker injury protections or reduce our pensions. So,
Right.
but yeah, so there's threats out there every single day, and that's why we believe obviously that the unionism is the right way to go.
So Chuck, let's take you back to your days in Champaign.
Mm-hmm.
How did it go over there? Did you climb the ranks at all? And were there any memorable incidents while you were there?
Yeah, and actually, Steve, I'm actually still there. I'm a captain, but I was hired in 1995. We had 4 fire stations at the time, and again, obviously, my engineer was the vice president at the time and encouraged me to join the union. But I think it was 7 years. In fact, I know it was. In 7 years, I made the rank of engineer. A lot of departments don't have that rank, but Champaign does have an engineer rank. And after 7 years, was promoted to engineer. And then 7 years later, was promoted to lieutenant. And then 9 years after that, was promoted to captain. So, and all through that, I was a local executive board member on our union. And Champaign now has 6 stations. We run with Urbana. I don't know if you're familiar with Champaign-Urbana or not, but Urbana has 4 stations. We have 6. And we kind of split the university, which is really its own city in and of itself. There's 40,000 undergrad. So combined, we have, if you will, 10 fire stations and about, 250, if you count the students, 250,000 population. So just like every other firefighter out there, I mean, we've gone on the broken leg all the way up to the 3-alarm fire. There's always a couple of calls that kind of stick out throughout your career, and obviously that typically involves pulling somebody out of a house fire. I've never had the honor of saving one's life. I have pulled victims out of houses, but we're not.
I'm sure you're downplaying a little bit.
Right.
Everything, it sounds silly, but again, for I guess I'll say suburb guys like us,
sure,
every kind of little thing's a win here and there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And
it's funny. I got my start off as a paramedic, and I think me and Steve used to talk about this here and there. It was funny how, as a paramedic, the hot call was like a cardiac arrest,
sure,
or a really bad traumatic injury. But I felt like I said, Steve, me and you would talk about all the time. We're the people that we actually did save were the grandmother who had chest pain at 3:00 in the morning.
Just the random.
Absolutely,
correct.
These people I think are being affected more than the simple cardiac arrest that may end up on the ventilator for 3 weeks and die anyways.
That is
Unfortunately,
true. It's just amazing to me though, the firefighter does so many different things that the general public has no clue. They just assume that we sit around and play checkers.
right?
That's a really long time ago. And
We
then
got PlayStations now, Chuck.
Hey Corey, how's your checkers game these days?
And then if there's a fire, then the fire department responds. They have no concept that, we do water rescue. We do obviously EMS, auto extrication, just high angle rescue. Any emergency.
Oh yeah.
The fire department is called on. Carbon monoxide. The list is endless.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's hot water heater goes out. They call the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
So it really, and I've heard it before, the all hazards department. The fire department is just, a historical name, but it's really an all hazards fire department.
Right. If anybody's having an issue and they call, we fix it. But yeah, looking at it, I actually had to explain it to a couple family members the other day about how mutual aid agreements and things that we do, like people just don't understand that. Like, well, what happens if we've got a 17-story high rise in my town?
Right.
Like, well, what happens if this happens?
Sure.
You know, like, are your guys able to manage this? And we're like, well, we've got a couple of key players that can, and we work with other departments that make sure that we can provide this ability to handle any situation in our town.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's incredible, and like I said, going back to just talking about the striking. Like, the one thing I do want to say that I really appreciate you mentioning is that I feel like a couple times on the podcast we've talked about, you know, Chicago, which obviously it was phenomenal and incredible what those guys have
1980.
done during their strike. Yeah,
Right.
but yeah, I think for all the times we've mentioned Chicago, we haven't, you know, you might be one of the first ones to mention that there were a couple other really big departments that
Sure.
or very important departments that got stuff done and pushed things in the right direction too, which is awesome.
That is very, very true.
So going back to you and having in your career, anything that you can think of that stuck out to you in all that time, or
I mean, they're just,
incident wise?
yeah, that Champaign-Urbana has 3 interstates, so just
Oh,
the
my
number
God.
of different,
Vehicle accidents.
yeah, and the things that you would never imagine a human body could do it's amazing,
Right,
really.
right.
And yeah, so those are still vivid.
And
you know?
again, that town, like I went down there. I'm not sure if Steve, I'm not sure if you ever made it down there. I went down there to the fire college, not the class, but to the college down there,
Right.
and did a couple of those classes. And that town is amazing.
Yeah,
There's-
it's booming
right.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we going down there. The city's a huge city, and combined with the fact that, like, you guys have a huge area that you guys are responding to out there too, right?
That is true. Yeah, really a mix of everything.
Is it?
Yeah, downtown is flourishing. You know, we have high rises. We also have some cornfields on the outskirts. So we've fought cornfield fires before.
I was going to ask
but,
you
yeah.
a lot of different stuff you guys are
Sure.
doing out there.
Yeah,
huh?
and then really everything, you know, mixed use, occupancy, everything. It's a mixture of both, and or everything. And the fact that there's 40,000 18 to 21-year-olds lends itself to a lot of EMS calls at between midnight and 3 a.m., as you can imagine. So
At what rank do you get off the ambulance truck?
we don't. That's another good thing about Champaign.
Let's
We
hear it.
go on every single BLS call, or I'm sorry, we go on every single EMS call, but we do not transport. You believe that?
Wow,
Yeah. We have 2 private ambulances actually transport.
really?
There's very few left in the state. Galesburg, Champaign, Urbana, Bloomington Normal now does. Decatur, Springfield, and Murfreesboro off the top of my head that do not transport their patients. So
Really?
Alton just started doing that. So from a revenue standpoint, again, each local government's different, but that creates revenue and that creates jobs for people. So
Right, absolutely.
we're always in favor of fire-based EMS for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Did so going back to the department, what kind of setup did you guys have? Did you guys run engines and trucks with your ranked?
Right. So as it is today, we have 6 engines, 2 ladders, a heavy rescue squad, and a 1 battalion chief. So an engine will respond with the private ambulance in that district. So,
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. So
Awesome. Steve, what do you got?
Well, Chuck, so you got heavily involved in the union. You're an executive board member at this time. How did you start getting involved with AFFI?
Well, let's see. It was about 2002, 2003, and Dave Foreman from Joliet, who is now an emeritus AFFI president, really started the ball moving forward for the AFFI politically, and asked me and my predecessor, Pat Devaney, who coincidentally is from Champaign, if we would be interested in helping in a state rep race in Champaign-Urbana. And at the time, I believe Pat and I were both roofing on our days off. And when we got done roofing, we would stop by the campaign office and stuff envelopes, or again, this is early 2000s, so we did some data entry on some computer that was 300 times the size of the computer I'm looking at now. And then occasionally put out some yard signs. And the campaign was very appreciative of it. And Dave Foreman was very appreciative of it. And that's really how I got my hold into the political aspect of the AFFI. And from there, I think most people probably listening know that Pat moved on to the AFFI before I did. And then in 2008, I was elected as the Central District Legislative Rep. So that's essentially, there's 3 legislative reps, and Chicago has their own. And the AFFI has an office about 2 blocks south of the Capitol. And those 3 legislative reps essentially live in Springfield. They're in session. They're in Springfield every single day. The General Assembly's in session. So there's an apartment above our office, and every single day we were either testifying on a bill, trying to kill a bill, talking with legislators, interacting with the fire marshal's office, really doing no different than any other lobbyist is doing, which even to this day, as long as I've been doing it since 2008, I'm still astonished on the number of lobbyists and the number of voices, if you will, that if you walk into the Capitol today, and everything that you're looking at right now has a voice in Springfield. The ComEd provides the power. They have a lobbyist. Apple Computers has a lobbyist. Coca-Cola has a lobbyist. The radio network has a lobbyist. Heinz Ketchup, seatbelt manufacturers, every single person, it's amazing to me. And that if the AFFI and Local 2 did not have a voice in Springfield, all of those rights and benefits that we talked about earlier that were earned, over the last 75 years could be gone in a matter of 60 seconds with a vote. So that's why it's imperative that, firefighters are in Springfield, whether you like politics or not. We're all local government employees. We are government. And every single thing that, we depend on is from the government. So it's vital that we stay engaged in the process and elect individuals that support our issues. So,
Yeah.
So Chuck, while we're talking about legislation, AFFI had some pieces of legislation that they passed just recently. The 2 that I'm thinking of are the labor bill, and then there were some COVID-19 protections that you guys put in place for firefighters. Would you like to talk about that at all?
Absolutely. So I'll start with the second one first. In 2007, Governor Rod Blagojevich, who I saw running, by the way, the other day.
He's right down there by you,
completely
too, I think.
white hair.
Yeah, he's right over in the middle.
He signed into law what we call rebuttable presumption, and that is, and again, this is a little bit different than Local 2 because they have their own work comp, or lack of work comp, actually. And this is all downstate firefighters. So if you, any heart condition, stroke, hearing loss, hernia, certain types of cancers, those are rebuttably presumed to have happened on duty, meaning that if Corey has a heart issue and is no longer able to work, it is presumed that he got that as a firefighter. The onus would be on to prove that he did not get it on duty or as a firefighter, or cumulative effects of being a firefighter. We're also included in that in 2007 were some bloodborne pathogens, hepatitis, et cetera. So any of those ailments are presumed to have happened on duty.
Or as a result of your duty, right?
Correct,
Yeah.
right. So in March, we, the AFFI, began contacting legislators, knowing full well that our members are going to be on the front lines, exposed exponentially, more than the normal Joe Q public. We would really like to add COVID-19 to that rebuttable presumption. And one more caveat to that 2007 law was that you had to have a minimum of 5 years on the job before that was a rebuttable presumption. So thanks to a number of I'll forget half the names, but two in particular, and that was Jay Hoffman and Kathy Willis in the House, and of course the governor signed it. They were instrumental in including firefighters and EMTs and paramedics in the rebuttable presumption of COVID-19, and they waived the 5 years. And we tried to articulate to them that many of our members that work on the ambulance, that are going on the EMS calls, are less than 5 years. So that bill was signed into law, I believe, in August. It's retroactive to January. And of course, as many of us know, we lost 2 Chicago firefighters to COVID-19. So that was a pretty important bill. I think it's important to note that sunsets on December 31st. So when we go back down in veto session, we're going to have to extend that, and it shouldn't be a problem. Obviously, I think we're in a second wave now.
I was going to say where the world is.
So we're going to have to extend that. And then your first one was the labor history bill, and there's been some let's see, I'll just say confusion between downstate and local 2, and hopefully this clarifies once and for all how this all transpired. AFFI has a convention every 2 years, and we take our direction from the delegates that are assembled at that convention. And one of the resolutions that passed unanimously was the legislative team needed to work with the General Assembly to create an awareness of labor, fire service labor, and the history involved behind it. So we introduced a bill that stated that every single every firefighter in the state of Illinois that is hired should receive at least a 1 hour presentation on the history of fire service in the state of Illinois. And as the bill moved forward, you can imagine there's opposition because it's an unfunded mandate. That's another hour taken out of an academy. That's going to be a cost. The fire chiefs asked, because the fire chiefs have obviously a lobby down there as well. The fire chiefs asked if we could remove volunteers and paid on call, which typically they're not in the union anyway, so it would make sense. So we amended that bill, and by amending it, when we amended it, we stated that any firefighter hired and there's 3 ways a firefighter is hired. You're hired under the Fire Protection District Act, you're hired under the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, or you're hired under civil service. So we said if you are hired under any of these 3, then you must receive this presentation prior to graduation, or you can't graduate. As the bill moved through and it got to the second chamber, about 42 pages above that, we recognized that when we identified those 3 ways to be hired, well above that, 42 pages behind, is the fact that any city with a population of 1 million or more is excluded. So for all intents and purposes, the whole time we're moving this bill, we were under the impression that every single firefighter from Chicago to Wood River in Southern Illinois must receive this education. Again, a total oversight. Rob Tebbins at the time was the political director, and we worked with him, identified that this is going to be an issue. And if you ever have Rob Tebbins on here, or Steve, you know Rob Tebbins, I believe. Do you know Rob Tebbins? You can call Rob today, or Joe Sonorski for that matter. And I told him to his face that the first bill filed by the AFFI will be a trailer bill, including Local 2. And I don't have the bill number, but it is filed, and we do not foresee a problem whatsoever. It was simply an oversight based on the fact that there was an over 1 million population that we just did not, quite frankly, did not think of. And there is a fix in place. I don't know that it'll be done in the 6 days of veto session. I don't even know if they're going to meet, how they're going to meet in 6 days in veto session. But it is one of our number one top priorities. That was never the intention to exclude any member of Local 2, for sure.
Did in the grand scheme of this, Bill, how many pages was it?
Well, because it includes 3 different statutes, the Civil Service, the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, and the Fire Protection District Act, literally hundreds of pages.
Oh, wow.
And unbeknownst to us, we just added that amendment, and by doing so, excluded those hired or those that serve a population over 1 million. So that complete oversight. There is a bill in place. I'll get you the number, Steve, if you don't already know it, to rectify that.
Awesome. And then it kind of, I guess maybe just backing up again, do you mind just giving us a brief overview of, so the Associated Firefighters of Illinois, what is that? Yeah,
so it's, I don't have a lot of history with other labor unions. I mean, obviously I know of them and have worked with them on a few bills, but it started, the International Association of Firefighters is our parent organization, and they're obviously based in Washington, D.C., and then each state has its own state association, and then there's locals, throughout each state. And the one good thing, there's many good things about belonging to the IAFF and the AFFI, is that each local has local autonomy. So if I keep going to Waukegan and Quincy for some reason. If Waukegan doesn't want Kelly Days, they don't have to have Kelly Days. They have local autonomy in literally every single thing that they do. Now, there's state statutes that they have to follow. They have to bargain over residency, or they have to bargain over staffing. But if Waukegan's local as a unit doesn't want 14 Kelly Days, they don't have to have 14 Kelly Days. Right. As more like the police or AFSCME, they have a team that goes around to Waukegan and Quincy and Springfield, and they negotiate for them.
The FOP or?
The FOP kind of does. Yeah, they'll go around. They have a team of negotiators that the city of Quincy cops might not necessarily sit on the negotiating team, but their state lodge actually goes in and negotiates the contract with Quincy, as opposed to the firefighters who, again, it's strange because you have to figure out what one local really wants, like residency. Alton might not give a shit about it.
Right.
So,
right.
And
that's one department cares about doing a 24-hour shift.
Right. And that's a whole nother. A lot of the Metro East is 1 on 3 off. We have a corridor like LaSalle, Peru. They do 48-96. Now, obviously, most are 24-48, but entirely up to local autonomy. But back to your question. I'm sorry, Corey. I'm getting off on tangents here. But the AFFI is the state organization. There's 225 local affiliates in the state, and there's over 15,000 members. Now, obviously, Chicago makes up, about 5 of those active members. But they are one of 225 local affiliates throughout the state. And we provide, along with the Local 2 political director, advocacy at the Capitol. We have 5 district vice presidents that service the 225 local affiliates, whether it's through collective bargaining or there's a discipline case and the local president, needs assistance that way. And we also have an educational component that our Vice President, Luke Howison, is in charge of. And ranging from COVID, we just had a COVID-19 roundtable to we have a pension seminar coming up at the end of this month. We provide, just various seminars on grievance arbitration, just a number of different things. So we provide an educational component. We service our locals through collective bargaining. And then we obviously have our legislative affairs situation. So
you guys pretty much, the AFFI pretty much represents, and it's a labor.
It's a
committee,
labor.
Or,
It's a labor organization, right?
Labor
There's
organization.
there's 11 executive board members. There's 3 at large that run, statewide, and that's the president, the vice president, and secretary treasurer. And we have the 5 district vice presidents that run in their district, and 3 legislative reps that run in a region, north, central, and south. And that's the executive board.
Wow.
And then we also have 3 trustees that audit our books that are completely separate, and they're elected as well.
Okay.
That audit our books. And we also recently we have a staff too, not a big staff, but when you think that our group is only 15,000 members, I would put it up against, the teachers or Teamsters. We have, and they're all firefighters, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
We have a director of health, safety, and education. We have a director of communications, director of governmental affairs, and director of technical services, along with a chief technology officer. And then, so there's 5 directors, if you will. And then in March, going back to COVID, because we identified, did we even talk about our COVID-19 committee yet? I don't think we have. I don't remember. The data department, who has done a magnificent job, it's when you go to the bargaining table and you are Clinton, Illinois, you don't have a lot of resources. They're a 3-person local, Clinton. And obviously Clinton, the local government, they have a city attorney and they have access to a lot of things.
Right, village managers.
Right. And our data department, since 2006 until today, has really built up a tremendous amount of data that we can utilize at the bargaining table. Sean Gillis is our chief technology officer and has done just a tremendous job of analyzing municipal budgets and creating charts and graphs specific to each local. We actually built up our data department, kind of bolstered it a little bit based on the fact that COVID-19 is not going away and local government revenue is essentially absent.
Yeah.
And we're facing, a number of locals will be facing or have faced layoff potential. So we actually hired 3 more data analysts to really
Help with
drill
analytics
down
and stuff.
and provide exhibits and whatnot. So we're functioning at a high level still at the AFFI, and despite COVID, and probably functioning even better than we have before. I hate to say that, but each one of us, directors, staff, and executive board members, and this is strange, and you guys can probably relate to this. Let's say I had this meeting at 1:00 in Chicago, so I could not be in Collinsville at 2:30, and I could not be at Peoria's public safety meeting at 3:15. But now I can sit in my kitchen and be on all 3 of them,
Right.
which is exhausting. I mean, they're calling it Zoom fatigue now, but you're literally everywhere and can't really focus on, because the next one's starting in 90 minutes.
Right.
So there's that. But yeah, the AFFI is really, it's a great
It
organization.
definitely sounds very multifaceted.
There's just so many different things that we do. And when I was appointed in January 9th, I had about a month lag time where Pat and I kind of, there was a overlap. And I thought, as a legislative rep, and I was in Springfield on a fairly regular basis, that I had a pretty good idea of what the AFFI did, but we do a ton of stuff and do it pretty well, and that's, again, thanks to the board and staff. So
And was that, you said there was 225 locals?
local affiliates, correct?
Okay.
Yeah,
And out of that, how many firefighters do you guys represent?
over 15,000, and our average local, Steve Shesky told me this, by the way, is 37. The average local has 37 members.
Oh, wow.
So obviously, Chicago being the largest. Rockford's next with 275 roughly members. Aurora's right up there. We have, I don't know, 25 or so with 100, 125. But
was gonna say,
the
it's gotta
average
be up
is
there, too.
the average is 37. So, and I just mentioned Clinton that has 3.
Right.
So,
yeah. I was going to say that it definitely seems like there's no department too
and
small
we have
or too big.
8. We have 8 EMS only locals.
Really?
Yeah. They're all in central or southern Illinois. Wow. But you have to be a public employee in order to belong.
And so in terms of that, what would you say why would you say it's important for career fire departments or career firefighters to care or want to be a part of this organization?
Yeah, like the AFFI's, the IFF's sole purpose really is the health and safety of our members. And I think that's indicative of what we did with COVID-19. And we also extended the Public Employee Disability Act by 60 days because of COVID as well. But that having the ability to research, our Director of Health, Safety, and Education has done a tremendous amount of research on cancer, hepatitis, just various pieces of equipment that may or may not be faulty. Having that knowledge and having the ability to go to your state association as a local affiliate and say, hey, this Hamaltro tool is jacked up and we almost got a guy get killed because of it.
Right.
Do you know anything else about it? Where, if our AFFI hasn't done it, I'm confident that the International, who has a staff of 100, has that research and able to flag that for us.
So really, and again, I know the last whatever we're looking at about an hour, I would imagine that we've been talking about this the entire time, the reasons why and why it's important. But yeah, I mean, there's being a part of a team probably more than anything, and like you said, representing. I know I've heard a lot of arguments from guys that from firefighters everywhere that like I'm not that big into politics like you said, or I hate lobbyists. That's what I've heard a lot.
Sure.
I hate lobbyists.
Right.
And arguments that I've made is that unfortunately just like everything else we're dealing with, like that is the nature of our system. That's the nature of our politics. That's the nature of our government. And like you were saying with Coca-Cola or Pepsi, which I would be very happy if
Are
we're
you Coke or
sponsors of
Pepsi?
ours.
Are you Coke or Pepsi?
You know what? I'm neither. I'm a bourbon guy.
Iced tea? Oh, right.
Yeah, never really Coke guy.
Gotcha.
Or never really a pop guy. But I'd love them as sponsors. I'll drink Coke all day long if they. But unless we wanted.
Hey, whoever's paying and tastes best with the whiskey, right? Corey?
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly. But you know what? Like you said, I mean, who knows how things would have went if you guys weren't down there when, again, for instance, Coca-Cola saying, you know what, we'd love to have the Coca-Cola symbol on every firefighter in Illinois.
Absolutely.
And, we might be sitting here driving NASCAR fire engines with advertisements.
That is
So,
a fact.
yeah.
And there really is contrary to popular belief, just because you're a firefighter or you're a firefighter, EMT, paramedic, not everybody likes you in Springfield or at the city council. They just don't, because we cost money. Right. And there are a number of groups that oppose things that we pursue, starting with our employer, the Illinois Municipal League, the Northwest Municipal Conference, the Chamber of Commerce. Sometimes the fire chiefs are opposed to us. There's a number of different hurdles that we have to,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I
jump.
I honestly, God, this is how close I am to you, Steve. I feel like I know what you're going to ask or what you're going to say, and like, I mean, even just looking at these 9/11 firefighters now.
Sure.
I mean, I was in high school, but like, when during 2001, for a couple years after that, at least, there was a pretty good respect for firemen. There was a pretty good respect for paramedics. There was a pretty good respect for police officers that were involved in this, in this catastrophe. And, now that it's coming time for, everyone to kind of pay the bill, we're looking at a lot of guys who have died, a lot of guys who are sick right now, and it's hard. I mean, you
Sure.
probably know more about this litigation than you clearly know more about this litigation than I do. But now that's coming to flip the bill, it's a little bit more difficult for these guys.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And again, it like anything, the dollars, right? The end answer is dollars, and I just wish if I'm going to convey something on here, it is the fact that, we need to be involved in the political process. I will say it's in our Constitution and bylaws that we are a nonpartisan organization. And I've explained it, going around the state that, of course, and this time is horrendous, obviously. Our country is divided, period. But you're going to get a list of endorsements from the AFFI or from Local 2, but you're also going to get a list of endorsements to every other organization you belong to. If you belong to a pro-life group, if you belong to the NRA, if you belong to the Knights of Columbus, that's their job, is to inform you. We're not telling you how to vote. We're just telling you when you receive that endorsement list, these are the people that at least 80% of the time will support you and your career, your livelihood, your retirement security, and your worker injury protections. And that, once you go in the voting booth, that's entirely up to you. If the death penalty is more important to you than your livelihood, then obviously that's your choice. But as a state association and even as a local affiliate, these are the people that historically, by their voting record or by an interview process that we do, they're going to stand with us. They're not the ones that just want a quote or a picture with a handful of firefighters the day before the election so they can put it on their Facebook page. These are the people that are going to make the hard vote and vote yes for your retirement security, or vote yes that hepatitis should be rebuttably presumed to have happened on duty. Because there's bills, and there's always bills, to strip all of that away.
Right. Vital to our continued success to have members at the local level working to elect individuals who understand the importance of our legislature and agenda. Without local representation, the AFFI doesn't exist. That was you, Chuck.
Yeah, that's very true. If we can just get one member of every local involved at the local level, and that bleeds over into the state level and then obviously the national level. But if one firefighter can get involved, attend a council meeting, and just your presence there is, okay, well, the firefighters are listening. And then, it's all about relationships and networks and talking to city council members and imparting your knowledge on, hey, I'm a firefighter. This is what I live every single day. This is what we do in our community. And this is why we're important. If they know you're engaged and you're attending your city council meetings or your township trustee meetings or whatever, that's a step in the right direction. And then obviously that bleeds over into the state level, once or twice a year, if you can go out and put yard signs out. They remember that more than they remember the check for $500. That's just the nature of the beast. If I don't think I'm going to get in trouble here, but if Corey is a state senator and there's a somewhat contentious bill on, make it a COVID-19, should COVID-19 be extended for rebuttable presumption? And the IML, the Chamber of Commerce, is saying, hell no way, it costs too much money. We don't want the onus to be on us for COVID-19. They could have got it, when they went to California. You're going to remember that over the course of your lifetime as a senator for 10 years, that there were 6 firefighters on a Tuesday afternoon putting door literature on your door or making phone calls from a phone bank. And you know what? These guys, I believe in them. They support me. I'm going to support them. And that's just the nature of the beast, whether you like it or not. And hopefully, if one guy in each local could do that, and then hopefully spread the word, that would
change the game.
Very beneficial.
Now, Chuck, we have membership within the AFFI who's gone above and beyond and have actually gotten into politics themselves. There are several local affiliate members who are either running for a position or are currently in a position within state or local government. Anybody you want to talk about?
Oh, is there ever? We'll start with Michelle Darbro, who is a sister in Local 2. She's on Engine 23, Steve? Is that right?
I believe so.
Firefighter, EMT, paramedic.
She's a paramedic. Paramedic.
She is running in the House 20th District. If you're going to have a state rep in Springfield representing you as a firefighter, surely you would want a firefighter speaking on your behalf. And I know Local 2 has been out for Michelle a number of different times. The AFFI guys have been out there as well. They put us in Park Ridge and Des Plaines for some reason, but that's she needs to be successful, and the more people that know about her, the better. I think her polling is showing well thus far. She would be a huge asset to every single firefighter in the state of Illinois. There's no question about it. We do have an AFFI member from Moline who is a state senator. And then, as Steve mentioned, we have a number of different firefighters that sit on their city council. Back to the city of Chicago again, is there three, Steve?
Yeah,
three.
Yeah, there's
three aldermen.
Three.
Yeah, that were former Local 2 members. And that holds true, in Pekin and Elgin, all over the state. And not even city councils. I mean, if you want to run for school district board, that's an avenue to, your name is out there on school board. If politics are, intrigue you and you want to eventually sit on a city council or become the mayor or run for state rep, that's a good place to start. Your park district board. And it's also important to note that the AFFI, if an AFFI member is seeking an elected office, they just need to fill out an application. It's 5 or 6 questions, and the AFFI does provide some financial resources for them. So vote for Michelle Darbro.
Wow. Well, I mean, again, that's how else to ensure our future than putting our own members in a place.
Oh, it'd be fantastic. On a side note, and New Hampshire's different. I mean, every state's different, right? But New Hampshire has 475 representatives, and 47 of them are New Hampshire firefighters.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Good place to live.
Right.
What's all right? I'm looking through things. What Chuck? I got a question for you. A little curveball. It's not going to be in your notes.
Okay.
What's
Uh-oh. Is this the question?
This is the question. So,
Okay.
Chuck, how many years?
25.
25 years as a fireman in Champaign. You've seen some pretty good pranks, I'm sure.
I have.
Can you think of the best prank you've been a part of or seen while working there?
Does it have to be in Champaign?
Nope.
So I was a firefighter in the military when we worked 24 on, 24 off.
Oh, boy.
I already like where this is going.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And we had a good relationship with the MPs, the military police. And one guy was just about to finish his first year. And we all have him. He's real cocky, just jag off. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So we planted a bag of sugar in a Ziploc bag in his coat, and then put it in his locker. And they brought 2 canine units to the fire station. Said they were going to have a random drug search, and they did 2 or 3, and then obviously went to, his name's John McDonald. I think he's a firefighter in Massachusetts somewhere now. But they went to his locker.
Hit on
and
his locker
obviously,
a couple
the
times.
dog did absolutely nothing different, but we didn't know that. And hit on his coat. They knew exactly where to open the zipper and find the bag. And if he didn't faint, he sure looked like he did. And literally started crying, and all he wanted to do was call his mother. That he just wanted to call his mom. That's all he wanted. And swore up and down it wasn't drugs.
I get one phone call.
Right.
I get one phone call.
I know my rights.
Right.
Oh,
That
man.
That is great.
It was a good one. Yeah, it's been a while too. There were a couple fakers out there. So Chuck, what's in future for you? What's in future for the AFFI?
Yeah, so I was just elected in June at our convention, which somehow we pulled off virtually. One of the first states to host a convention virtually. And so I'm elected for 4 years. And obviously, I know no one has ever been elected in the middle of a global pandemic because the AFFI was not around when the Spanish flu occurred. Speaking of what is today? Our AFFI's birthday is October 22nd, 1935.
Wow.
And just a side note real quick. So there was literally a handful of firefighters from Chicago, Springfield, East St. Louis, and a couple of other downstate cities that got together in Springfield and said, hey, we need to have a voice in Springfield here. You know, we're working literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They got time off, to go home and eat a meal. That was it. And lo and behold, 80 plus years later, we are where we are. But that small group of individuals met in Springfield and formed the AFFI with its sole purpose then was to, have a voice and have language written in state laws. So, but yeah, so I was elected in the middle of a pandemic, and the fact that, and we've already alluded to it, our members' health and safety is of the top priority. And I believe our COVID-19 committee, through their research, if you go to our website, there's a ton of information. There's boilerplate language to use if you're, looking for return to work type stuff or when to quarantine, et cetera, et cetera. That committee has done just a yeoman's job of putting information together for our affiliates, and couple that with the fact that every single local government has seen a drastic reduction in funds is going to be a huge obstacle that we're all going to face together. The fire chief in Champaign, Gary Ludwig, they do things a little bit differently. He was the president of the International Fire Chiefs from August 2019 to August 2020. And so right in the middle of the pandemic. So they do 1-year terms. But their association, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, are anticipating 30,000 firefighter layoffs across the nation. So if you do the stupid math, that's 600 in the state of Illinois. Obviously, per capita, we have far more. And we, if you've read any newspapers, Peoria is facing drastic reductions. Decatur, Glenview, a number of different locals have already gone to the concession table. So we need to be creative in how we go about our next 18 to 24 months. So again, that's why we built up our data department to provide our local affiliates, some resources. So we're evenly matched here, because there are going to be some local governments that, quite frankly, even before COVID, were hurting financially, and this just buried them. Yeah. There are some local governments that, because it's a crisis, they want to take advantage of that. So it's our job to identify that no. Glenview, you have $26 million in reserves. You don't need to lay off 11 firefighters.
Right.
But
needs versus wants.
Right. So, and going forward, we want to provide as much educational opportunity for all of our members. And then Luke, our vice president and he's in charge of education, has really tripled that in his 2 years as a vice president. And there are a number of full-time fire departments that, could at least perhaps want to hear from us. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah.
So.
Or maybe make a transition or whatever it is.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like we talked about, probably in previous episodes too, like unionization is just, it's it's a good way for us to all get on the same page.
Oh,
Whether
absolutely.
We're, wherever it's through and however we're doing it, like us being on the same page is getting the job done.
No doubt.
For as much as I give my wife problems all the time, like that's one thing that we always said was that, mom and dad will never have a difference of opinion in front of the kids. And
Correct.
I feel like that's kind of some issues that we've had in the past where like this,
Oh, sure.
this union saying this is important, this one saying this is important, and if we're all on the same page, kind of getting it done at the same time.
Right.
What do you got, Steven? Anything else?
That's pretty much it. Kind of wrapping things up, Chuck. I like to always ask our guests if you had a group of young firefighter paramedics, maybe just getting out of the academy, what would you tell them about the job? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I would tell them first that I don't know if they realize that they are also full-time janitors or custodians for at least the first couple of years. But I don't think that there is a better job, at least in the United States. And I say that with some, now granted, I was in the military. I packed tractor parts. When Champaign called me, I was a maintenance man at Best Western. I've worked at McDonald's. I've lumped furniture for North American Van Lines, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
There is no better job,
that you've had.
That I've had. And I think it bleeds in. I was like, I was on the football team, baseball team, basketball team in high school, and just the camaraderie and the, I just don't know that there's any other profession like the firefighter profession, because you're going to go on some horrible events. And again, it's a cliche, you're going to everybody's worst day to make it better. And you're going to experience so many awful things, but the fact that you're doing it with others that can, quite frankly, laugh it off, joke about it, those are bonds that you never, ever, lose. So I would also remind them that there's a lot of, I don't want to say downtime, but if, in between calls and training, if you have the ability, to brush up on your streets or brush up on, how to intubate somebody, just the little stupid things. Or here's something stupid. When I was an engineer, before I went up to sleep at night, I would put my hands on, if there was I would, in my mind, envision a house fire. I was the engineer and would literally touch the tank to pump. And in my mind, it was, hose lay number 1, would touch that and physically like turn the throttle and the relief valve. I did it every single night so it was muscle memory.
Right.
Just little things like that you don't have to think twice about, because you have to think about 8,000 different things in a matter of 60 seconds. So that's probably what I would, let them know. And there's a long, long history of those that came before us that, sacrificed a tremendous amount, and many of them sacrificed their life. And I guess I would close with this. There is nothing, I don't want to sound morbid, but we recently lost Dylan Cunningham, brother Cunningham from South Holland, in a training accident, and I attended the wake and the funeral. And there's nothing more spectacular than our AFFI Honor Guard honoring Dylan's life. And at the same time, it's spectacular. It's also comforting, especially for the family and even for us in a strange way. Mm-hmm. It's just super impressive. And that's, we would talk about, we're always together. That there's no doubt that when there's a line of duty death, there's literally hundreds of firefighters from across the state, across the Midwest, and sometimes across the nation, paying respects, because they know that, quite frankly, it could have been them yesterday or might be them tomorrow. So
right, yeah, I always kind of joke about the joke about it and laugh about like the brotherhood thing and sisterhood thing about like us, being brothers. But it truly is funny how, there's a lot of times where, we'll shoot out texts about like, oh, let's meet for a beer tonight or whatever. And a couple guys can't show up, or these guys can't show up, or, me and Steve are going to meet for something and one of us can't make it. But it is crazy, like a family, how if I don't get a chance to have a beer with Steve for a year, if God forbid something going on with me, I'm like, hey, Steve, I really need help. I really need a hand. It's 3:00 in the morning. I know he's there in 5 minutes, or
That's
I call
crazy.
the guys at the station. Like, it's hard to find the downtime, but we truly are family when it comes to there being a problem. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, Chuck, again, thank you. So I can't thank you enough.
Thanks for
being
having
here,
me.
for making
This
the time
is
for me.
great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Next
Did
time,
you see?
next
Did I
time
see
we'll get some
Ryan
booze
Brady's
with you.
going to be on your show?
Yeah, he's actually. I'm going to give him a call. Give him a
good.
call in like an hour or so.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk to him. You hang out if you want. Have a couple pops. You got plenty of downtime.
I got to go to a student meeting.
Oh.
meeting. I got to get on a Zoom.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Steve, mind doing our plug? You're really good at them.
Plug it.
Yeah, Chuck. Yeah, again, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Sorry I couldn't be there. Hopefully, this won't be the last time you come out on the show. As AFFI goes on and keeps making the job better for everybody across the state. So I appreciate you coming. Thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to go to the podcast store, www.chicagosbraveststories.com, www.chicagosbravest.com. Go to the podcast store, check out the podcast shop, check out some of our corporate affiliates, and help support the podcast. We bring it to you 100% free of charge on all the podcast platforms. Thanks again for listening, and check out AFFI's website. Chuck, what's AFFI's website?
AFFI-IAFF.org.
There you go. Check out the AFFI website for all your local news.
How good is Corey's voice, by the way? How good is it?
You guys always make me blush when you
Isn't
say
that good? That's fantastic.
I didn't.
Steve says the same thing to me all the time.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for
All right,
checking
cool.
in. We'll catch up with you guys later.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
The opinions and views are that of Chicago's Bravest Stories podcast and their guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views of any municipal governments, fire protection districts, fire departments, EMS, or law enforcement organizations.